Thank you for joining us today for the second annual Global Summit, Global Kidney Innovations, Expanding Patient Choices and Outcomes, a collaborative partnership event presented by the American Association of Kidney Patients and the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. I'm Glenda Roberts, and I'm the Director of External Relations and Patient Engagement for the Kidney Research Institute and the Center for Dialysis Innovation at the University of Washington. I've managed kidney disease for over 50 years, and I have experience with in-center and home dialysis and as a transplant recipient. I'm honored to serve AAKP as an ambassador. Being part of AAKP allows me to support the organization's dedication to improving the lives and long-term outcomes of kidney patients through education, advocacy, patient engagement, and the fostering of communities. Today, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Jonathan Himmelfarb of the University of Washington Center for Dialysis Innovation. Dr. Himmelfarb is the director of the Kidney Research Institute, as well as a professor of medicine and an adjunct professor of bioengineering. He will present on emerging research with global implications, identification and diagnosis of kidney disease, the Kidney Precision Medicine Project. We appreciate Dr. Himmelfarb for his taking the time to share insights on research and the identification and diagnosis of kidney disease, and how timely research and innovation can improve patient lives and society.
I'd like to thank the AAKP and GWU for the opportunity to talk to you today about a very exciting project called the Kidney Precision Medicine Project. The Kidney Precision Medicine Project is an initiative in a broader initiative for precision medicine in the United States and globally. And precision medicine is a relatively new concept, and what it means is basically that we want to get the right treatment, the right drug, to the right patient at the right dose at the right time. So basically that means that it's not one size fits all. Every person with a given condition is different than every other person with that condition, and we want to treat that person as precisely as we can at that moment. So the Kidney Precision Medicine Project is focused on kidney diseases, not surprisingly. And really, it's focused on the two most important kidney diseases from a public health perspective: acute kidney injury, or AKI, and chronic kidney disease, or CKD. And both of these conditions are very broad. They affect millions of individuals, and they account for most of the harm that's associated with kidney diseases. And they're each currently defined by measuring in the blood the level of a substance called creatinine, which is produced by muscle cells, but it's eliminated by the kidney, and by looking at the amount of urine and the amount of protein in the urine, because when kidneys get damaged, then there's more excretion of protein from the body. And these are used to define both AKI and CKD, but these types of simple measures fail to cluster patients into very distinct disease mechanisms. So in other words, people with chronic kidney disease, there can be lots and lots of different causes and different parts of the kidney that are injured in chronic kidney disease. And these simple measures don't really tell us what's going on in the kidney, which cells are involved, how much damage there is in the kidney. And the same is true for acute kidney injury. And the lack of precision in making the diagnosis of both acute kidney injury and chronic kidney disease has hindered the development of treatments, of what we call pharmacologic therapies, for a lot of reasons. One reason is that we rely a lot on animal models of these diseases, but they don't completely replicate what human disease is like, or human disease phenotypes. And because these terms are so imprecise, we have a poor molecular understanding at the level of molecules and cells of the variations in what causes acute kidney injury or chronic kidney disease. And that inability to identify for an individual what's going on a molecular level has led to an inability to identify and prioritize what are called high-value human targets for making new drugs that'll either cure or slow the progression of these disease types. We also lack human kidney biopsy tissue, which tells us with much more clarity what's actually going on in the kidney in a given disease state. And that's very much unlike cancer, where a lot of progress has been made, where it's routine to always have a biopsy of the cancer that you can compare to normal tissue to understand on a molecular level what's causing and driving the cancer to progress. So if we want to study more precisely kidney diseases, as the Kidney Precision Medicine Project is geared to do, why study chronic kidney disease? Well, it's a public health consideration of tremendous import. 72%, almost 3/4, 3 out of every 4 patients that are currently on dialysis have kidney disease that's attributed to high blood pressure or hypertension or diabetes. And those are the diseases that cause chronic kidney disease that we most want to have new treatments for. These diseases disproportionately affect African Americans, and many, in particular African Americans, have specific genetic risks for these diseases to progress to the need for dialysis. Right now, the standard of care does not include a kidney biopsy, so for individuals who have chronic kidney disease, we don't really know what's driving the disease process. And as a consequence, we just haven't been able to develop enough new, safe, and effective treatments that'll either cure or prevent the progression of these types of kidney diseases. So if we want to improve kidney disease-related public health, we need these research-type biopsies of the common progressive kidney diseases that cause CKD. Acute kidney injury, similar to chronic kidney disease, is a public health burden that we increasingly recognize causes chronic kidney disease or causes it to progress and leads to end-stage kidney disease and the need for dialysis and transplantation. It also contributes substantially to mortality for patients who develop acute kidney injury, and the rates of acute kidney injury have been increasing by over 10% per year in the United States for well over a decade now. So this has emerged also as a major public health problem. It's also an area where we have very few safe and effective treatments, and we don't have a molecular understanding of the disease process. So the goals of the Kidney Precision Medicine Project, which is funded by the National Institutes of Health, is, first of all, to understand and learn how to better treat human kidney disease by ethically and safely obtaining kidney biopsies from participants who have either CKD or AKI, and to use those biopsies and that biopsy tissue to create what we call a kidney tissue atlas, and then use that atlas to identify the key cells and targets for new treatments that'll allow us to better understand which individual patients will respond to what therapy, so that we can really truly devise individualized treatments and truly practice a more precise form of medicine. At the same time, this research project is designed to improve the overall scientific knowledge base about how the kidney functions in health and disease, and to bring young investigators into kidney disease research, since they're the future for our field, and they are likely to be the people who come up with the new cures and the new treatments. This is, as I mentioned, funded by the National Institutes of Health, and it's a very ambitious research program. This is a diagram of sort of the architecture, if you will, of the sites in the organization. It's, as mentioned, quite ambitious, and right now there are 34 different medical centers around the United States that are involved in the Kidney Precision Medicine Project. There are recruitment sites. This is where individuals that have AKI or chronic kidney disease can enroll in the KPMP studies and become participants and undergo research kidney biopsies. There are tissue interrogation sites where these tissues that are obtained from the kidney biopsies will be sent, and they use state-of-the-art methods to measure proteins and genes and other molecules that are inside the kidney tissue. And then there are mechanisms called an opportunity pool mechanism that allow us to bring extra expertise into the KPMP consortium. And then the central hub organizes the whole consortium by coordinating all the data and administering the entire network. And most importantly, through what's called a data visualization center, we'll create the atlas that'll allow us to do the work that needs to get done. This kidney precision medicine project is unique in precision medicine, and there are a lot of efforts now in many fields to increase precision medicine. But for KPMP in particular, the entire community, patients, clinicians, scientists, and ethicists from the get-go have all been included and have a major voice in what happens. In particular, patients with kidney disease are equitable partners with an active voice across the entire research enterprise, from the beginning to the end. And the culture, especially when patients are at the table in decision-making, promotes the right priorities and the safety of patient participants above and beyond anything else. KPMP is also relatively unique because it's addressing the big public health problems that commonly lead to what's called end-stage kidney disease, where people need either dialysis or a kidney transplant to stay alive. Many precision medicine projects focus more on relatively rare diseases or genetic diseases and tend to not go after, if you will, the big public health problems like CKD. But we recognize that if we can make an impact in AKI and CKD, it can benefit the most people from a public health perspective. And the atlas that we're developing has a clinical orientation, meaning it's very patient-centered, and it will reflect the kidney in both health and disease, so we can make those kinds of comparisons. And then we're also at the same time creating new tools for the future. We're creating new digital types of pathology analyses of kidney biopsies. We're using very complex profiling and the use of computers and machine learning to discover new targets, new pathways, so we can come up with new treatments and hopefully cures and new therapies going forward. I want to emphasize that patients are at the center of everything that we do in KPMP. As mentioned, our Community Engagement Committee, which consists largely of patients and some clinicians, is involved in every step and every process with representation on every committee, voting rights on our steering committee, and we listen continually to the Community Engagement Committee and our patients' opinions about what we're doing. They guide the work that they're doing, and they have made the KPMP a better consortium than it would have been without such substantial patient involvement. So what are we really trying to do to create an atlas, and what do we mean by an atlas in the Kidney Precision Medicine Project? I'll describe in a minute in more detail how this atlas might be different than what you think of as a typical atlas. Our goal is for the Kidney Tissue Atlas to really be what we call an integrated knowledge environment. It means we take all the knowledge that we can about the kidney and health and disease, and we integrate it into one data set that can be analyzed in multiple different ways. And by doing this, we hope to be able to redefine what we mean by the cause or etiology of chronic kidney disease and AKI and come up with much more precise classifications by integrating the kinds of data that will come out of the Kidney Precision Medicine Project. And I think very importantly, the goal of the Kidney Precision Medicine Project is to put all this data in the public domain and to make it useful and accessible, not just to kidney researchers, but also to clinicians taking care of people with kidney disease and to patients who are living with kidney disease. So we're trying to create an atlas and a data set that's useful really for the entire kidney community. And we have already developed an integrated information technology platform, a digital platform, and implemented that within KPMP. And shortly, these kinds of data will be available on the website for individuals to take a look at. So what do we really mean by an atlas? Well, in the left-hand figure here is what we used to think of as an atlas. This is from 500 odd years ago. But, when I was growing up, you thought of you wanted to go on a car trip, use the Rand McNally Atlas or something like that, and you turned the pages and you looked at every state or every city and how to get there. If you think of how we have evolved since then, now we have global positioning systems, so you have basically a living atlas that constantly changes. You don't have to turn the pages. It constantly changes as you move in your car. And we've even taken that a step further by using basically enhanced computer learning with apps like Waze that will tell you not only what roads will take you from point A to point B, but which ones have the most traffic and which ones will get you there faster. So when we talk about an atlas, what we're really talking about here is not like an old-fashioned atlas, but a living data set, a visual representation of all the different domains of data that are linked together spatially to understand what's going on in the kidney. And in the figure on the right-hand side here, you see what's called the Human Brain Atlas, which was created by the Allen Institute, the Allen Brain Institute here in Seattle. And this bears about as much resemblance to this atlas from the 1950s as the KPMP atlas would to anatomy textbooks from 100 years ago. So this is this is an image that you would see from a typical kidney biopsy as they're performed today. And these large units here are called glomeruli. They're the filtering units in the kidney. And here are the tubules, which surround the glomeruli and then process the filtrate that eventually becomes the urine and eliminates the toxins from the body. And so this would be today, if you had a kidney biopsy today, this would be what the pathologist would look at and try to make a diagnosis from your kidney tissue. One advance already in KPMP is that we are creating digital images from these kinds of pathology images so that they can all be in the data lake, and not just your pathologist can be looking at it, but this kind of image within KPMP will be available through the website to researchers, to clinicians, and potentially to patients and to the public. And this is what we envision that the pathology in the future will look like, very, very different than the pathology of today, when we use a combination of digital images, computer, machine learning techniques, and spatial localization within the kidney of different kinds of cells and different kinds of molecules. And we can kind of move in and move out, looking in closer and closer detail to the level of a single cell, or looking, as you see down here at the bottom, or looking up here in the upper left at the kidney as a whole. So what we envision is that in the future, the pathology and our understanding of what's going on in different kidney diseases will really have been turbocharged and moved into the 21st century and allow us to make discoveries that we couldn't have made before. So what will this data look like? Well, this is kind of a picture, a cartoon representation here of what a kidney biopsy would look like. And this would be about ½ an inch long in reality. And these little red units here would be those glomeruli that I showed you a few minutes ago, or the filtering units. And then we would move in, if you will, to look at structures in the kidney like the glomeruli, as we saw a few minutes ago, or these tubules like we saw a few minutes ago. But now we can move in even closer and start looking at cells and different components and genes and proteins that are contained within those cells. So the data will be multimodal, as we say, meaning you can look at cells, you can look at proteins, you can look at structures, or the entire architecture of the kidney. And it's not just one type of data, but it's multiple types of data that can all be analyzed together. And this is what we mean by multidimensional stacking of data. So inside cells, you have genes, and then you can also study modifications to those genes that turn the genes on or off. And those genes make something called RNA. that eventually produces protein, and we can look at what's called the transcriptome, which is how much RNA for which different genes are being produced in the cell, in a single cell or in every cell in the kidney in the biopsy at any moment in time. And then all of those transcripts of RNA get converted into proteins, and then proteins make sugars and other types of molecules that we call the metabolome as well. And we are systematically collecting each of these types of data from individual cells and from the kidney biopsy as a whole, and stacking them together and using computational approaches to understand the pathways that cause disease in the kidney and hopefully come up with new targets for new therapies. This is another diagram to kind of illustrate the complexity and why we need such computational power and computer power and machine learning power, where we're looking at thousands of genes. We're looking at the cellular level, the molecular level, at these different networks, and even at the nucleus inside the cell, which is where the DNA is housed. And we're able to image all of these in the kidney biopsies and then put all of these data together using complex computational and bioinformatic approaches to develop new leads and come up with new treatments. So I'll end by saying that there's tremendous promise to the Kidney Precision Medicine Project. We are very hopeful that over the next decade, this will transform our understanding of the common kidney diseases that have such devastating consequences for patients, namely chronic kidney disease and acute kidney injury, especially when they lead to end-stage kidney disease requiring dialysis or transplantation. We hope by having that enhanced understanding, we'll be able to treat individuals much more precisely and with therapies that are much more tailored to what the disease process is in their own kidneys, and that will give a better result, and we'll have both safer and more effective treatments at the same time. And I'll end with this quote from Bill Gates, where he said that most people overestimate what they can do in 2 years and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. The Kidney Precision Medicine Project is relatively young, and we were a little bit more than 2 years into the project, actively enrolling participants who are undergoing biopsies, obtaining data, and analyzing data. We unfortunately have had a pause for the last several months because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're hopeful that we'll get started again with continuing this project in the next several months. And this is envisioned as a long-term project that is necessary to come up with the kinds of solutions that we need to hopefully completely transform what life is like for people living with kidney diseases. So I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Himmelfarb. We really appreciate your presentation.